Joy Cooper.
I am 1,500 feet above the ground, holding my door closed as our plane was spiraling through the air in this smoky mountain valley. The tops of the mountains are 5,000 feet, and we're at 1,500. The pilot is doing everything he can to hold our plane in control as we're just flying through the air. What used to be straight and level, like a bowl of salad. The alert system is hollering out, terrain, terrain, pull up, pull up. The pilot's trying not to pull up because where are we gonna go? Until he has to. There's a mountain right in front of us. He pulls up and we go way up. I don't know if any of you have ever felt a stall before, but it's this sinking feeling of absolutely no certainty under your feet. The only thing I heard and felt at that time was the voice of God telling me, you're gonna be okay. And I rested. I opened my eyes, my ears were ringing. All I could see was broken glass, twisted metal, dirt, shrubs, and I thought, oh, we're back in Anchorage watching We Were Soldiers. Where's Mel Gibson? And there was no Mel Gibson. We had crashed into the side of the mountain. I looked around me to assess my situation, assess what changed, assess what no one could have predicted. And I looked behind me and my best friend was dead. Her aunt behind me, I could only assume, was also passed away because I yelled at them multiple times, which woke the pilot up, but did not wake them up. I looked at what I had. I thought, okay, I'm the only one here. If anybody's gonna get help, we were flying over a highway, I'll just roll down the mountain and get help, right? So I reached my arm up to open the door and, oh, well, here's my first injury. My arm was almost completely severed, every bone broken in the elbow, just holding on by a tiny patch of skin. But did you know that you can control your arm, even if it's, almost cut in half, by just looking at your fingertips? So I looked at my fingertips and I walked them up the dashboard, around the edge, around the window frame, and pulled myself up 4 times. Every time really did not feel good at all. But I couldn't move. My legs were trapped. So I looked around and the only consolation was this little beep, beep. It's the emergency locator transmitter, which sends a message to the heavens, to air traffic control that says, hey, there was a really hard landing and or crash. You might want to send somebody. So I thought, okay, somebody's gonna come, and when they do, I need to be 150% ready to go. So I did what everyone else would have done in this situation, and I took a nap. You see, that morning I was a 28-year-old, successful aviation career. I had just started my master's. I actually had just finished a statistics class, which sometimes I say I'd rather crash into a mountain than ever take another one of those. I hate statistics. I was with my best friend and her aunt and uncle on a vacation of a lifetime, hiking the waterfalls, flying around. When we took off that morning, the sky was so clear you could see everything. All the mountains, the ocean, a pod of whales. It was beautiful. Until we came into the mountain pass and realized that a wildfire that was about 300 miles away had blown the smoke into our valley, and it went from 100 to nothing in 2 seconds. You couldn't see your hand out of the window. I woke up, you could hear this helicopter coming in. I thought, all right, it's game time. Here to come, let's get ready to go. Around the corner, I could hear steps through the brush. And I hollered out, help, there's still people alive! Next thing I hear is more footsteps. And around the corner walks Brian in a National Guard uniform. I thought, ooh la la. And he goes, ma'am, we're here with the National Guard. We're gonna get you out of here. And I thought, all right, I'm ready. And as aviation people, we like to do turnovers. We like to do shift changes, right? So I'm like, here's your checklist. The 2 in the back are dead. The pilot is seriously injured. I've got a broken arm, and I think I broke my wrist also, a little bruise there. and that's what you've got. And he goes, all right. But what I didn't know is I was in way worse condition. The guys told me later after I went to visit him that I was circling the drain. So imagine emptying a bathtub. I was just going down, about to go right out if it wasn't for their expertise to save me. I woke up in the hospital 5 days later and realized I was way worse than I thought. My legs were not trapped, my back was broken and I was paralyzed. I had broken my wrist, I was right. My wrist, my elbow, my rib, punctured a lung, busted a vertebrae, had 4 spinal cord tears, broke my femur in 2 places, and crushed both ankles. I had almost lost my left ankle, but thankfully they were able to save that one for a little bit anyway. It was weird, because I still kind of had this peace. And I didn't remember, that feeling when you're falling through the air, you should be screaming your head off because you're on a roller coaster, but that feeling of peace of everything's gonna be okay. I was like, oh yeah, everything's gonna be okay. And they're like, I'm sorry, you're paralyzed, you're never gonna walk again. I'm like, no, I'm not. I'm in competitive ballroom dancing. Like, you don't get this. I'm gonna not only walk again, I'm gonna dance again. And they just smiled and walked out the door. But I knew that I was gonna be walking again. I knew that whatever they told me, I didn't have a complete spinal cord cut. My neurosurgeon never told me I would never walk again. He just said it's kind of, we'll see. But I know he said that to make me feel better. You see, life takes many different changes. We all are gonna have change at some point in our life. Hopefully none of you ever go through what I go through, but all of us are gonna have change in some way or another. And I'm really glad I'm able to share this story, as many have said. By sharing your story, then when you get into an issue, or you run into a roadblock, you can go, oh, I remember that girl, she broke her back, and she still was positive and able to do things. I can still do that. It's a mindset. So I'm so happy to be able to share with you my leadership principles, because I feel like leadership is something that really helped me get through my life. It prepared me for my career. It also prepared me for surviving a plane crash as the only survivor, which unfortunately the pilot did not make it. He was in incredibly terrible shape, and I don't believe he made it past the time the guys got me out of the helicopter. Lifted me out of the helicopter. But leadership is what prepared me to be able to deal with all this. So I wanted to share with you guys 3 tips that I use for leadership. The first one is lead from within. So if you can't lead yourself, how do you expect anyone to follow you? How do you expect you to follow yourself? So lead from within. Number 2 is know who you are leading. It may be yourself only, it may be those around you, it may be a corporate team, but know who they are as an individual. And number 3, understand your goals. Why do you do what you do? What makes you tick? And what's your reasoning for the goals? Do you want to meet, $1 million by the time you're 25? Or do you want to, why do you want to do that? Do you want to better people's lives, or do you just want to tick a box and be like, haha, I was rich? No, sorry, don't want to poke too much fun at you. But that's why, why do you want to do that? So starting from within, I feel like is the baseline. How do you know who you are? Starting from within requires a lot of emotional intelligence, which is a big fancy word for figure out what makes you tick. How do you respond? When stress comes up, are you the Richard Green that goes, oh, I need an Iron Man, give me more? Or are you like probably more of the rest of us who go, ooh, stress, okay. All right, I'm ready, I can do it. Or do you run away? How do you respond to that? And then how do you address how you respond to that? So emotional intelligence is realizing how you react and how your reaction changes the way that you respond or react to other people. Also, situational awareness. It's a fancy aviation term for knowing what's going on around you. When you're in a plane, you need to know what's out there, what's on your instruments, who's in your ear, who's in your plane. Know exactly what's going on around you so that you can respond and react, and use that emotional intelligence of, I'm stressed, or in my case, I'm hungry. So I'm probably angry. So I should get food before I talk to someone, or else this is not gonna go well. Know how you're gonna respond. So then that way, you're able to deal with people and lead yourself from within. Be able to realize what's going on in your head. Don't let someone else lead you. Other people are great at leading, that's fantastic, but you still need to be the driver of your own machine. That is how you do it. You get to pick and choose what you listen to, who you let lead you, and how you go. Number 2 is know who your team is. Know who they are as an individual. Those who work with you, if you're in a corporate setting, they spend over a third of their lives working with you, working for your company. How do you know them? What are their passions? What are their goals? Why do they work for your company? Is it just for a paycheck? Or do they actually love what they're doing? How do they tick? What are their strengths and weaknesses? It's not something that's written on a resume. Strengths and weaknesses are how you respond to things, how you do things, how you tick, in a way. I use that word a lot, so ignore the tick portion. But how do they react? When they're hungry, are they angry? Feed your people. Or however you do things. So if you know who your team is, then now you're able to, again, respond, react, encourage, and inspire. You communicate to one person one way, and you may need to communicate to another person a completely different way to be able to get your goals across, and also to be able to encourage them. Number 3, understand your goals. If you don't understand why you do what you do, how are you going to be able to explain to someone else why you do what you do? That's what I was mentioning before. Like, if you're trying to figure out, okay, I'm supposed to meet this metric. In airlines, we like to get on time. So a lot of times we go, okay, on time, get the flight out. But then we'll leave behind 30 people. And it's like, okay, well, what's your goal? Like, okay, that's a metric. You want to get it out on time, but the goal is arrive on time so everyone else makes their connection, right? Because you don't want 200 people missing their connection. You've all ran through airports before like crazy people. It's not fun.
No.
But number 2 is you fly people. That's your business. So you have the metric, but what's your goal? Your goal is to fly people and get them to their destination on time. So that's what you need to be working towards. Care about your people. Go, okay, well, this is the goal that we have set. I want to make $1 million by the time I'm 25, but I want to impact people. So how is that going to have to work? How am I going to be using that? I like to wrap this up with one story. I had a doctor that I had inherited when I moved to Texas, or rather he inherited me. And if you know orthopedic surgeons, they don't like to inherit someone else's project piece, which I was. I wished if I went through TSA, they'd catch all the metal in me, because my dad says I'm worth more as scrap metal, so, which is true. But, so here this doctor, he got me and he's like, okay, well, here's this girl, she's never gonna walk, like, her elbow might move this far, like, we'll see what happens, but we'll see. So he walks into my room to do his morning checkup, and he goes, hey, how's therapy going? I was like, it's good. Guess what I learned how to do a couple days ago? And he goes, what? I was like, I can raise my leg. And I kicked it up just a little bit. Now to this point, I had not been able to move my leg at all. I could move my big toe. That was it. But that to me was, ha, I'm gonna walk again. And they're like, ha, you moved your toe. So I'm like, I can raise my leg now. And he goes, oh, really? Show me. So I adjust myself. Now I'm laying in bed, right? And I just barely kick up my leg. And he goes, oh, okay. All right, now kick. And I was like, okay. So I tighten up again and kick up again, like maybe 4 inches this time. And he goes, okay. And I could see the light bulb start to flicker in his eyes. And he goes, all right, now kick it. He's a surgeon, he can't be beat, right? Obviously. So again, I crank it up, and this time I get to 6 inches, and I'm like, ha, I got it. And he just goes, okay. And the light bulb fully turned on. He walked back to my physical therapist and he said, did you see what she can do? And she goes, yeah, we've been doing it all week. I knew she was gonna do it. That is when I knew my goal. I knew what I was capable of. I needed to know my team. He didn't believe me, but he needed to believe me. He was the one doing the surgery. At this point, I still had like a metal fixator with pins and rods all over my left ankle. And the goal was to lock it in place so the ankle doesn't move. And I'm like, I just bought a new pair of heels. I need that ankle to move. It doesn't move. But I needed to see that he understood my goal. My goal was to walk and preferably dance again. My goal was to overcome the limitations that he was putting on me before he did this surgery. When that light bulb went off, man, he came up with all sorts of ideas. He came up with all these plans and schemes that we could possibly do to be able to get that ankle to work again, because he knew that now I was going to be using that foot to walk on. So we ended up still doing the same original plan. But I was able to come up with, I know exactly that he did everything he possibly could. So now I can be assured that while my ankle doesn't move, it was everything he could do, and this is fine with me. My goal was to walk again and be the best shape or the best position I could be to act as a normal person, which, you know, I got some nice, accoutrements now to prove that I'm normal. But that is what it means to lead from within. I was on a hospital bed, completely dependent on all of my nurses. One day I decide I'm gonna stand up on my own. The next day I'm like, I'll wash my face today and I'll be happy, because that's all I can do. And I was happy with that. That is life. That's leading from within. That's knowing who you are, what you're capable of, and also what stresses and things come into your life and how you can respond to that. Know your team. Know your physical therapist who's behind you 150%, and know the doctor who doubts you, and learn how to communicate with each of them, and then understand your goal. My goal was to walk again and dance again. I'm happy to say a year after the accident, I walked into my job. I walked into work. 2 years after, I went dancing again. I had to ice the ankle. Yeah, it works. That is why leadership is so important to me, and I hope to be able to get that across to you guys. Like, you could take some tiny little part of that and be like, okay, you know what? I can lead from within. I'm gonna realize when I'm having this struggle or this success, and be able to really tap into that strength. So thank you guys so much for being here. I hope that is an encouragement to you, and I'm looking forward to hearing from everyone else who's gonna be speaking this time. Thank you.
Isn't she lovely?
Yes.
Joy Cooper, everybody, one more time. Thank you. Very good. Now, as Joy's coming back in, who has questions for Joy Cooper?